It was a quiet morning in New York City. The sun filtered softly through the tall glass windows of the Kingsley estate, a mansion so large that even echoes took time to return. Inside, Ethan Kingsley, one of the youngest billionaires in America, sat silently in his luxurious bedroom, holding a steaming cup of black coffee. His sharp blue eyes stared at the news on his tablet, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. Ethan wasn't just wealthy, he was cold, calculating and obsessed with control. Nothing in his life happened by accident. Every deal, every conversation, every gesture was a test, and today his test wasn't about business. It was about people. For weeks, Ethan had been curious about one particular person. Amara Jones, his new maid. She was quiet, reserved, and never looked him directly in the eyes. Unlike the others who flattered and feared him, Amara simply did her work, dusting, cleaning, and moving around the mansion like a soft breeze. She didn't ask questions, didn't gossip, and didn't take shortcuts. Ethan had noticed something unusual. Whenever he passed by, she seemed nervous but never careless. She would lower her eyes, whisper a polite, "Good morning, sir," and continue her duties. There was something about her silence that bothered him, or maybe intrigued him. So, this morning, Ethan decided to test her. He leaned back on his bed, loosened his tie, and pressed his fingers against his temples. "Let's see what she's really like when no one's watching," he muttered to himself. He called for her through the intercom. "Amara, come to my room. The sheets need changing." "Yes, sir," her soft voice replied. Moments later, the door opened quietly. Amara stepped in, a petite woman in her early 20s, wearing a neat uniform and holding a laundry basket. Her brown skin glowed faintly in the morning light, and her hair was tied in a simple bun. She walked carefully, almost afraid to make noise. But Ethan had already decided what he would do. As she approached, he leaned back and pretended to fall asleep. His breathing slowed, his eyes half closed. Amara hesitated at first, unsure if he was awake. "Sir?" she whispered. No answer. She waited another few seconds before placing her basket on the floor and gently removing the sheets. Her movements were delicate, like someone handling fragile glass. As she worked, she occasionally glanced at him, not with curiosity, but with something deeper, respect, maybe even sadness. Then something unexpected happened. Amara stopped working for a moment and looked around the room. Her eyes fell on Ethan's desk, cluttered with unopened mail, documents, and photos. One of the pictures caught her attention. It was an old framed photo, a woman smiling, holding a baby in her arms. Ethan looked younger in it, genuinely happy. Amara carefully set the pillow aside and walked toward the desk. She didn't touch anything, just looked at the photo for a few seconds, her eyes softening. Then under her breath, she whispered, "You must have loved her so much." Ethan's heart gave a small jolt. "She knows?" Amara sighed quietly. "You look so lonely now, sir," she murmured. "No one deserves to carry that much pain alone." Then something truly shocking happened. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a tiny folded note, and placed it beside the photo. She didn't read it aloud, but whispered something that made Ethan freeze completely. "I don't know what you're fighting inside, sir, but I pray you find peace." Her voice trembled slightly as she returned to her work. When she was done, she quietly folded the old sheets, replaced them with new ones, and gently covered him with a blanket. She looked at his sleeping face once more, a face everyone in the city feared, and softly said, "You pretend to be strong, but you're still human." Then she turned and left, closing the door behind her. Ethan's eyes slowly opened. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside, something he didn't recognize. His throat tightened and his chest felt heavy. That simple act, the note, the whisper, the kindness, had pierced through the walls he'd built around himself. He sat up and looked at the small folded paper on his desk. His fingers trembled slightly as he picked it up and read it. It said, "You can rebuild anything, and even a broken heart." Ethan stared at the words for a long time. He didn't know what to feel, anger, confusion, or guilt. But one thing was certain, his test had turned into something else entirely. He wasn't sure who was being tested anymore, Amara or himself. The night grew colder inside Ethan Moore's massive mansion. Outside, the rain poured relentlessly against the tall windows. the rhythm matching his racing thoughts. He couldn't forget what he had seen earlier, Amara, his quiet maid, tucking the blanket around him when she thought he was asleep, and whispering words that still echoed in his chest. Even the strongest hearts need warmth sometimes. Those words weren't just gentle. They were real. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Not since Lily, his late wife. Ethan sat up in bed, staring into the darkness. Who was this woman who moved so softly, spoke so little, yet carried such depth? He told himself it didn't matter. She was an employee, just another face in his staff. But the ache in his heart told him otherwise. Sunlight cut through the mansion's glass walls, golden and sharp. Ethan walked downstairs, dressed in his usual black suit, his expression unreadable. Amara was already at work, cleaning the piano room, the one he never allowed anyone to touch. That piano had belonged to Lily. Ethan stopped in the doorway, watching her hands gently dust the keys. She didn't notice him. She moved with care, almost reverence, as if she knew the piano carried memories. "Who told you to clean that?" His voice was deep, sudden, and cold. Amara froze, eyes wide. I'm sorry, sir." The head housekeeper said. "I don't care what she said," Ethan interrupted, stepping closer. "That piano is off limits." Her hands trembled slightly as she lowered the cleaning cloth. "Yes, sir. I didn't mean any disrespect." He studied her face. There was no fear of losing her job, just guilt, maybe empathy, and somehow that unsettled him more. "Don't touch it again," he said sharply, then turned to leave. But before he could, Amara whispered almost to herself, "It must have been hers. The one you loved." Ethan stopped dead. He turned around slowly, eyes narrowing. "How do you know about that?" Amara's gaze fell to the floor. "I heard some of the staff talking. They said she played every night before she passed." Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to be angry, but he couldn't. The memory of Lily's laughter filled the air for a fleeting second, and then disappeared. He exhaled and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the marble hall. Ethan tried to bury himself in work, but every time he glanced at his coffee cup, he remembered how Amara quietly refilled it that morning without him asking. Every time he caught the faint scent of lavender, he thought of the way she hummed softly while cleaning. Finally, he gave up pretending to be unaffected. He opened his laptop and searched her name in the staff files. Amara Johnson, 28. References verified, excellent performance history, but nothing else. No address listed, no family contacts, just blank spaces. "What are you hiding?" he muttered. That night, he stayed late in his office, waiting. Through the security camera feed on his desk, he could see Amara walking through the hall, turning off lights, finishing her chores. Then she stopped at the piano again. Ethan leaned closer to the screen, watching. She sat down on the bench and began to play. Soft, broken notes at first. But then, as her fingers grew surer, a melody filled the air, the same song Lily used to play every night. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. He rose to his feet, breath shallow. How could she know that song? He hadn't played it for anyone. Not once since Lily's funeral. He walked downstairs quietly, drawn by the haunting sound. When he reached the doorway, Amara was still playing, eyes closed, tears on her cheeks. The song floated through the air like a ghost of the past. He stood there silent until she finished. When she turned and saw him, her face turned pale. "Mr. Moore, I'm sorry, Where did you learn that song?" he demanded, his voice trembling. She hesitated. "My mother used to play it before she died. She said she learned it from a friend she used to work for." Ethan blinked. "What was your mother's name?" "Evelyn Johnson," Amara said softly. "She worked as a nurse. Many years ago." Ethan's world tilted. He sank onto a chair. Lily had once told him about her nurse, a kind woman named Evelyn who took care of her during her pregnancy. The same Evelyn who disappeared after the birth. Complications that took both Lily and the baby. "My God," Ethan whispered. "Your mother, she was with Lily before she died." Amara's eyes widened in shock. "You knew her?" He nodded slowly, unable to speak. For the first time in years, his walls began to crumble. After that night, something shifted between them. Ethan stopped barking orders. Amara stopped avoiding eye contact. They spoke more, sometimes about small things, sometimes about grief, and sometimes about nothing at all. One morning, Ethan found Amara standing in the garden, staring at the sky. "It's going to rain," she said, smiling faintly. "How do you know?" "The air feels heavy. My mom used to say it's the earth's way of releasing sorrow." Ethan looked up. "Maybe it's time I did that too." Amara met his gaze. "Then let it rain, sir." He smiled for the first time in a long time. But peace doesn't come without pain. One evening, a man in a black suit arrived at the mansion. He was from the corporate board. Ethan's rivals wanted to use his emotional distraction to push him out, and somehow they had found out about Amara. "You're letting a maid interfere with your judgment," the man sneered. "She's manipulating you." Ethan clenched his jaw. "You don't know her." "Oh, but we will," the man said, smirking. "She's already under review. Her records don't check out completely. You might want to ask her what she's really hiding." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The doubts returned stronger than ever. He had trusted someone again, and maybe, just maybe, he was being played. He decided to test her one last time. He called Amara to his room, pretending to be sick, weak, cold, almost collapsing. Amara rushed in with concern written all over her face. "Mr. Moore, are you okay?" He lay back, eyes half closed, pretending to be unconscious, just like the first time. She panicked. "Ethan! Please wake up!" But then, instead of calling the doctor or the staff, she did something unexpected. She knelt beside his bed, took his hand, and whispered, "If you can hear me, please know I would never hurt you. You remind me of everything good my mother believed in." Then she pressed her forehead to his hand and cried, openly, deeply. Ethan's heart broke. He could feel her tears on his skin. He couldn't pretend anymore. He opened his eyes slowly. "Amara," he whispered. She gasped, pulling away. "You're awake?" He nodded, tears in his own eyes now. "Yes, and I was wrong." She tried to stand, embarrassed. "I should go—" "No." He held her hand gently. "Stay, please." For a long moment, silence filled the room, but it wasn't cold anymore. It was full of warmth, understanding, and forgiveness. Ethan realized he wasn't testing her loyalty. He was testing his own heart's ability to trust again. The mansion was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Ethan sat in the study, watching the fireplace flicker, his thoughts heavy. After what happened last night, something inside, to him had changed. For the first time in years, he felt alive. But a shadow still lingered. The man from the board had said Amara's background wasn't clean, that there were secrets in her past. And no matter how much his heart wanted to believe in her, his mind whispered, what if they're right? He didn't want to doubt her. Not after everything she'd done. But being betrayed once had turned him into a man who trusted no one easily. Just then there was a soft knock. "Come in," he said. Amara entered quietly, holding a tray with his morning tea. Her eyes looked tired but gentle. "I made your favorite," she said, trying to smile. Ethan stared at her for a moment before speaking. "Amara, can we talk?" Her smile faded. "Of course, sir." "Did I do something wrong?" He took a deep breath. "I don't know, but I need you to be honest with me. Who are you, really? And why are there no records of your past before 2 years ago?" Her hands trembled slightly. The tray rattled. She placed it down and looked away. "I knew this day would come." "Then tell me the truth," Ethan said quietly. Amara sat down slowly, her voice low but steady. "My mother, Evelyn Johnson, worked for your wife before she passed. After she died, we lost everything. Mom was blamed for the medical mistake that killed Mrs. Moore, but she didn't do it. Someone else switched the medicine, but no one believed her." Ethan's eyes widened. "That's not possible." "The hospital report said—" "The hospital wanted to protect its image," Amara interrupted, tears forming in her eyes. "They fired her, ruined her name. She tried to clear her record, but nobody would listen. She died of a heart attack 2 years later, from the stress and humiliation." Ethan's throat tightened. "Oh, God." "I came here because I wanted to see the man my mother always talked about," Amara said. "She said you were kind, that you loved your wife more than life itself. I wanted to know what kind of world she had died for, and maybe find peace for her." She looked down. "I changed my last name to get this job. I didn't want anyone to know who I was. I just wanted to make things right." Silence filled the room. The only sound was the slow ticking of the clock. Ethan leaned forward, his voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid you'd fire me, or hate me, or think I came here for revenge." He stood up, his heart torn in two. "Amara, I could never hate you." The door suddenly burst open. It was the board member, Mr. Reynolds, holding a folder in his hand. "I knew it!" he sneered. "I told you she was lying. This woman faked her identity." Ethan's expression hardened. "Get out. She's manipulating you," Reynolds shouted. "She's using your wife's memory to gain your sympathy." Amara stood there, silent tears falling. But Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped between her and Reynolds. "Enough!" Ethan roared. "You think I can't see the truth? She's not the liar here. You are. You've been feeding me poison since the day my wife died." Reynolds laughed mockingly. "You're throwing away your company for a maid." Ethan's tone dropped to ice. "She's not just a maid. She's the only person in this house who's shown me real kindness." Reynolds scoffed and tossed the folder on the desk. "Then deal with the consequences yourself." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Ethan turned back to Amara. She was crying silently, her shoulders trembling. He walked up to her and gently took her hands. "Hey, look at me." She hesitated, then slowly lifted her gaze. "I don't care about your past," he said softly. "You've done nothing but good since you came here. You brought life back into this house. You reminded me what it means to feel human again." Amara shook her head, tears streaming down. "You don't owe me forgiveness." "But I do owe you truth," Ethan interrupted. "Your mother didn't make that mistake." "I remember now. The doctor who was on shift that night. He was later dismissed for negligence. The hospital hid it to protect their reputation." "Your mother, she was innocent," Amara gasped. Her knees gave out, and Ethan caught her before she fell. "She always said one day someone would believe her," she whispered. "Thank you." He held her close. She was right. Weeks later, everything changed. Ethan called a press conference and publicly cleared Evelyn Johnson's name. He donated a large fund to rebuild the hospital wing in her memory. The board tried to fight him, but Ethan resigned instead, choosing to start over on his own terms. He didn't want power anymore. He wanted peace. And he wanted Amara in his life, not as an employee, but as someone who made him whole again. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he found her in the garden, the same spot where she once said, "Let it rain." He walked up quietly. "You were right again." She looked up, smiling softly. "About what?" "The rain. It washed everything away. The lies, the pain, the loneliness." She chuckled lightly. "And what's left?" He took her hand gently. "Something real." For a long moment, they just stood there, the wind brushing through the flowers, the sky painted gold and violet. No titles, no secrets, just two broken souls who finally found home in each other's truth. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional short stories like this one. Sometimes healing comes from the people we least expect. And love, no matter where it's found, always changes everything.